can't believe our neighbor's a zombie.
Yeah, and I keep telling you, dude, it's Halloween. He was just wearing a zombie costume.
A costume? He bit a chunk out of your arm.
What? This? You already explained that when he fell, he tried to brace himself with his teeth. Hence, the bite. Besides, zombies can't talk.
Zombies talk all the time. Remember that movie, My Boyfriend's Back?
Wasn't Philip Seymour Hoffman in that?
Yeah, he was. Weird.
Humble beginnings.
Yeah, anyway, you should go to a doctor and get that looked at. You don't want to turn into a zombie too?
I'm not gonna turn into a zombie because there's no such thing as zombies. Besides, this is the only doctor I need.
Man, doesn't this remind you of that game, Zombies Ate My Neighbors?
Oh, that was a great game for Sega Genesis.
What? It was better on the Super Nintendo.
No, Sega.
Zombies Ate My Neighbors was developed by LucasArts and published by Konami for the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. It's a run-and-gun game where you need to save your neighbors from various horror movie monsters. The game came out before the ESRB rating system was controversial in many regions for its gore.
Although the game wasn't a huge commercial success, it did receive very positive reviews. Since its release, it has become a cult classic and has been re-released for the Wii Virtual Console. There was also a sequel release called Ghoul Patrol and a spiritual successor called Herc's Adventures. Even though the game is very similar for Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, there are notable differences. Which one's better? Let's find out.
The game looks great on Super Nintendo.
Your two main characters each have a great, unique look, but the real star of the show here is the monsters. This game has many monsters from several horror films. Zombies, aliens, werewolves, giant baby. The list goes on. The levels all take place in various locations you'd expect to see in horror films. The animation is solid too. There's always a lot going on in the game, but it never slows it down.
That's odd. My game looks exactly the same.
The same looking game for two different consoles? Why would they do that?
The main characters look good in my game too. I have all the same good looking monsters and locations. I even have the same fluid animation. My game looks just as good as the Super Nintendo game.
Yeah, it looks the same, except for the one glaring detail you're ignoring.
That detail is the fact that the size of the screen on Sega is almost 3/4 the size of Nintendo's. You have this whole section of the screen just with the status bar for weapons, items, life, and the map. Nintendo just puts that front and center, not sacrificing any gameplay area. You still have the same amount of game on the screen, but it's oddly compressed.
That's just your opinion.
If you've never played the game on Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis version looks fine. Having the map on the side is great, because it doesn't get in your way and block your vision at inconvenient times. This can happen a lot on 2-player on the Super Nintendo, where one player's map can block the other player's view. It's not a problem on Sega. The Sega has a nice tight look, and your view never gets blocked.
Yeah, you can lie to yourself about the status bar, but you can't deny Super Nintendo looks better.
Once again, Sega has its colors mixed up. Okay, the jacket's purple. Let's make it red instead. Overall, the Nintendo has a better use of color, as opposed to Sega, which doesn't have as much to work with. With a better looking game that isn't compressed, best graphics go to Nintendo.
Well, since our games look the same, I feel like the presentation's gonna be the same too.
Dude, you do not look good.
Stop trying to change the subject.
I'm serious. You're turning green. You're definitely turning into a zombie.
Don't be ridiculous. I probably appear more green because I've been eating a lot more green veggies. Remember that one time I ate nothing but carrots for a month? I sure hope my hair doesn't change again.
You're wrong about that. And you're wrong about presentation. There are some differences.
Check out the opening title screen. On Sega, the entire title is wavy, but on Super Nintendo, the title is slowly revealed with a much cooler effect.
That's barely anything. That's only a matter of taste. But I think there's one thing we can both agree on that's not cool. Censorship.
Once again, Nintendo censors a game. The game over screen on Sega drips down bloody red, symbolizing your violent death. But on Super Nintendo, the blood has been replaced by purple ooze. Lame.
Yeah, well, that's barely anything.
It doesn't matter. Censorship is lame.
Because they were able to follow the original developer's vision, best presentation goes to Sega.
These games are very similar, but music is where Super Nintendo really shines. Let's hear some back-to-backs.
Sega just can't compete with Nintendo. Sega sounds empty compared to Nintendo. Super Nintendo has a more dynamic sound and better instrumentation.
Even though it has its limits, the Sega game's more about the music.
For some reason, Super Nintendo includes sound effects in its music. This can be distracting and take away from the music.
Adding a few sound effects doesn't ruin a song. And speaking of sound effects, whoa! What is happening to your skin?
I'm just like really itchy, you know? We got mosquitoes or something? I feel like I need that bug spray.
Yeah, I don't think those are mosquito bites. You're definitely turning into a zombie.
I think I know a mosquito bite when I have one. I mean, look, check it out. Mosquito juice is coming out of this one. Maybe some Neosporin or something.
Will you stop doing that? Can we please just talk about sound effects?
Listening to the games back to back, it's obvious Super Nintendo has much better sound effects. With better music quality and sound effects, sound goes to Nintendo.
Our games may look and sound slightly different, but there's no denying that they play exactly the same.
Both of these games are 1 or 2 player. Both have groups of people you need to save. Both have hordes of various movie monsters trying to kill you and those people. Both have various weapons to kill those hordes of monsters. Both have various items to aid you in your journey. Both have 48 levels and a password system. These games are exactly the same.
So gameplay has to be a tie.
Yeah, you would think that, but that's putting it too simply. If you look deeper, then you can determine that there are in fact many differences, specifically the controls. Here we are, we're doing it, and we're gonna get it done. And talking, and someone might be able to read this. Hey! What are you doing? You trying to eat me?
No, don't be ridiculous.
Yeah, you were, just like a zombie.
You got it all wrong. My teeth feel funny. Yeah, they feel a little weird, so I just wanted to make sure that I could still bite through stuff. And your arm naturally was just, you know. What were you saying about controls?
Yeah, about that. Our controllers do affect gameplay.
The Super Nintendo controller is perfect for this game, since once again the 4 face buttons aid in gameplay. It's very simple. You have 1 button to use your weapon and 1 to use your item. Then you have 1 button to switch weapons and 1 to switch items. That's 4 different controls for 4 different buttons. Perfect for the Super Nintendo controller. Then you have your typical 3-button Sega controller. You can't use 4 different buttons since you only have 3, so what do? We have 1 button for weapons and 1 for items. If you want to switch weapons or items, you need to hold down a button while you press another. How primitive. This slows down your fast action gaming quite a bit. With the right number of buttons, Super Nintendo has the edge over Sega.
Buttons? Is that all? I keep telling you, Sega has a 6-button controller, and it works great for this game.
The whole holding down a button to switch between items and weapons is easily resolved with the 6-button controller. Not only is it resolved, it's actually better on Sega. On Sega, you can customize which buttons do what. On Super Nintendo, you can't do that. The button assignment on Super Nintendo is a bit odd too. You use Y as attack, which is fine, but then using items is X, a button that rarely gets used in any Super Nintendo game. It makes it a bit confusing at first. It would have been nice to customize the controller, so Sega has a slight edge here.
Well, not everyone who plays Sega has a 6-button controller. You know what they definitely don't have? The flamethrower.
Exclusive to the Super Nintendo game, the flamethrower makes the gameplay experience more complete. With that slight edge, gameplay goes to Super Nintendo.
Even though both games are very similar, Best Zombies Ate My Neighbor game goes to Nintendo.
The 2 games are pretty much the same, but the Super Nintendo game looks and sounds better. Since they play the same and have the same level of enjoyment to them, wouldn't you want the game that looks and sounds better? Sure, Sega allows you to customize controls, but having the controls set on Nintendo doesn't ruin the game. Both games are still fun, and I highly recommend playing them, especially with a friend. Best Zombies Ate My Neighbor game goes to Nintendo.
Man, you are not looking good. We gotta get you to a hospital.
What? There's only 2 reasons you need to go to a hospital. Reason number 1. Okay. I'm starting to think there's something to this zombie theory of yours. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. Maybe we can kind of look like that movie Shaun of the Dead. How the one got...
Finally. Oh! Man, you can wake the dead with that one, am I right? Oh, he would have loved that one.
Thanks for checking out our latest video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks to everyone who suggested Zombies Ate My Neighbors, and be sure to keep leaving us with your suggestions. Also, check us out on Twitter and Facebook. And a special thanks to everyone on Facebook who helped us decide to do a Halloween episode. Later.
Okay.
Jesus Christ, man.